There you are, and welcome to the Nine Questions podcast, where I'm going to bring exciting insights and wisdom from some of the niftiest leaders in our community. So, I'm your host, Sam Thompson, and I'm excited to share all of this with you. Each podcast is going to have someone that's an authority on the subject matter that we're going to talk, and we're going to look at stories and strategies and tips on how to live life in our magical world, right? How to navigate today's adventure, so to speak. So, whether you're looking for inspiration or tips or some wisdom, some motivation, practical advice, this podcast is for you. So, tune in the 9th of each month for the new 9 questions. Don't forget to subscribe and rate. Share would be cool. Now, keep your arms and legs inside the vehicle at all times, and let's get on with the show. Thanks for watching. Welcome to another segment of the 9 questions. I've got a real treat for you today. I've got Dawn. She's part of the Temple of Witchcraft. We're going to talk about this and some other things that she does. She's great at tarot and divination. So, to give you a proper introduction, she's a high priestess in the Minoan Guardian tradition at the Temple of Witchcraft in Salem, New Hampshire. She is an active minister there. She's been reading tarot for almost 30 years. Wow. And it specializes in Om divination and Reiki healings. Om is definitely something everybody should really kind of look into because there's a lot of wisdom there. Dawn's been a member of CUPS and has been a guest speaker and ritualist at the UU Church in Waltham and Concord, Massachusetts. Hopefully I didn't butcher that too bad. And in Newport, Rhode Island. She loves teaching pagan myths and spirituality to kids and to adults. She lives in Massachusetts with her family and can be found at the Steampunk Festival in Waltham or posting daily Ogham wisdom at her page. And I'm going to put a link to that down in the show notes so you can just click and go. Let's make life easy. Welcome, Dawn. Thank you for taking time to come visit with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
I know because we've known each other. We were just discussing it off. We've known each other for a long time and can't quite figure out how we met. So it's
Yes.
just so. With you being a high priestess of the Temple of Witchcraft, can you talk a little bit describe that? What is the Temple of Witchcraft?
So the Temple of Witchcraft is founded by Christopher Penczak, Steve Kenson, and Adam Sartwell. It is a temple up in New Hampshire, and it is Christopher has his seminary school, which goes through all deep dive into witchcraft and lore and magic so that it works for each person. And I went through the school, for the 6 years that you need to go through the school. And so I'm a high priestess there. But before then, I am a high priestess for the Minoan Gardnerian traditions. And I'm, from the New York lineage. So I've been practicing witchcraft since 1992. So it's been a nice long time. And I feel like with the temple in particular, if you wanted to heighten your magic, the temple is really a great place to go. Christopher explains things very clearly, and he enjoys the teaching, and you can tell. So with his magics and with other things, it just seems to deepen your relationship with everything. And that's kind of like where I wound up meeting you, is because not only do you take a deeper dive into your allies of like plant and animal and crystals, but I wound up getting very deep into metal as well. And copper in particular is just one of the ones that sings to me, and I love it. But meeting you and your book and everything has just been like, oh, it's like suddenly I have this wonderful relationship with like the forge gods that I never had before. And
Yeah.
it's been a really lovely journey. And I'm just very happy to be here.
Well, I think it definitely opens up new avenues.
Yeah, it
Gives
really
you another
does.
tool to put in your toolbox.
Hmm.
No, the Temple of Witchcraft, they do a yearly festival.
Yeah, so we have a Temple Fest is
Okay.
what it's called. It happens on Labor Day weekend this year, and next year it'll be Labor Day weekend. It happens in Charlton, Massachusetts. So it's right on the border of Massachusetts and Connecticut, so way up north, but hopefully it won't be this hot as it is right now in September. And we have guest speakers come in. This year we have Byron Ballard. Last year we had Morpheus Ravenna and Morgan Daimler, who is one of my favorites. So it was really nice to have her there. And it's a weekend of classes where you can, again, take that deep dive into magic. We do ritual, we have vendors, and it's a lot of fun because it's right in the woods. You know, you're basically in a cabin in the woods, and you're just taking that weekend to kind of just connect with nature, connect with community, and just move on from there. It's a great retreat. I definitely urge people to go. It's a lot of fun.
I think we don't have as many of those down here in the South. We've got Mystic South, and that's pretty much it. But up north, you guys seem to have it really figured out. There's like one every few weeks of some kind of
Of something.
of something going on up there. And I'm like, wow, this is you would be broke and spoiled.
Yes.
um,
Broken spoiled is accurate.
Now, I know you do a lot of work for the community, as far as no cost. You can you talk about some of the things that you do? Because I think it's really important that people have access to things they don't know that they have access to.
Right.
Not everything costs. Some things do, and I'm okay with that because we all have to, feed our families. But I think I know for me, part of my devotion is teaching, right? So, I do that at no cost. So I understand that. And can you talk about what you do offer?
Yeah. So I do teach at the Temple of Witchcraft now, and a lot of that is because it's a great platform to meet fellow witches and magic makers. It's an introductory thing. I do full moon rituals for the temple. We have a ministry, each, I should say this, the temple has 12 ministries, and they each take a different part of what it is to be a priest or a priestess. So, like the Scorpio ministry, for example, deals with bereavement. So, if you have a death in the family and you need help, you can reach out to Scorpio to work with that. And that's part of our community. So, one of the things that I do here is I am part of the Pisces ministry, and that is the ministry that does the Sabbats and the full moons. So they do ritual work. I've
Nice.
been doing ritual for a really long time. I love it. So I teach and do the full moon rituals online because it reaches more people. And as you said, we're very spoiled in the Northeast, it feels like. I feel like there's a lot of stuff maybe in California, but there's a whole swath of the country that feels like they don't have community. And so the temple has a really vibrant online community. It's one of the blessings of COVID is
Yeah.
that we got online. And in getting online, we can do these meditations and these classes, and you can be a part of a magic community and feel like, oh, I can do this. I can it's a lower cost, so it's like maybe $20, maybe less than that, to just do one class and to explore what that is. So I just did a class on Manannán MacLear this past Friday, and it was $20, but it came with like I did a teaching on him, I did my own personal gnosis on him, and then I did a ritual, and that is available for download at the templeofwitchcraft.org site. You can actually go there and download a class,
Oh,
and
how
then
cool is that?
you're in it. And I've taught a bunch of classes like that. I did one on Caradwyn. A friend of mine did one on the Morrigan. So we have a lot of good wisdom out there, which is a lot of fun.
Now, your moons, and Sabbats, do you charge for those rituals to be a part of online, or is that
So the full moons, I think, are $15. I think it's a sliding scale.
okay?
The Sabbats, I believe, are 20. They could be less, but like I said, it's 20 and under. I don't think it goes 25 and up. I think it's 20 and under. Could be 25, but I'm not 100% sure. Just because I wind up writing the ritual, I'm not the one who posts the cost. I apologize.
No, no, no. Yeah, kind of hard to do everything.
It is, but we the Sabbath that's coming up next week is Lunasa or Lammas, as it's known in the, greater pagan community. Um, we will have a public online ritual on that Friday. So I think it's July 26th or 25th. I will look at my calendar real quick. Yeah, the 26th, at 7 p.m. We will have an online ritual where we'll go explore what Lunasa actually means, or what Lammas actually means, how we're celebrating in this particular season, how to connect with the land. And then we'll go into a meditation, into a ritual, and have that moment to connect with the energies of the Sabbath. And then we close and usually just chat for a little bit so that people
Nice.
can feel like we're a part of everything.
I think
Um,
even though, we're no longer in COVID, the kind of lockdown stuff is, I still think that people yearn for that community because, a lot of communities, there's not, we've kind of been involved in it about as long as we have, right? I mean, because I've been doing it about 30 years too. And it was always, cups, right? That
yeah.
was the only place we could hang out, was cups. And there were so many different people there, but you had a place that you could hang out. And now I think it's got a lot less so. There's not as
Mhm.
much in person as there once was, but we've got access to a lot more information now. Not all of it good, but we have access to a lot of information, and I think that's a good thing to help our next transition to the pagan community down the road. Of what we need to do is we have people that can help. I think that's really important. And speaking of that, what are some of the big changes that you've seen over the 30 years with the pagan community?
So the the pagan community over the last 30 years has it goes in waves. It kind of evolves and moves backwards and forwards. It's kind of like the waves. In the 90s, we didn't have access to a lot of information. So we took a lot of books that were classic books, like The White Goddess, for example, from Robert
Mhm.
Graves, and we took them as it must be history.
Right.
Um, and it's, we found now that we've able to translate the lore in the Middle Irish, now that we've seen the translations from the Welsh people, we've realized that a lot of what Graves wrote is actually more of a poetry book than it is an actual history. But at the time, we're thinking, oh, must be a textbook because it
This
comes
is the
across
way.
as a textbook. It must
Yeah.
be. So we've learned a lot more about the different cultures and different pieces of what makes our religion and what makes our practice grow. And I think that in the beginning, especially in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, they were like, you can only do it this way and you can't do anything else. And we had a lot of pioneers, like Eddie Linehan, who kind of came out as a gay witch and said, why does it have to be binary, male, female? Why can't it just be magic? Scott Cunningham's book on the solitary Wicca, became a huge draw for people to come through and just say, I can just practice on my own. I don't need to go find a coven. And we learned a lot. We took a lot of those folk magics and a lot of that history and we put it together in a way that really makes the community thrive. And I love that about us. If you're into medieval history, if you're into that kind of thing, you might want to dress up and do the whole lady and lord piece. But deep down, that connection to earth and that thread that runs through the world is what makes it so fascinating and lovely being a witch in this particular day and age.
It it definitely gives you a lot more knowledge on things we didn't know anything about.
Yeah.
Number one, and I think, but with that also, there's that unlearning, right? That you
Yeah.
have to do, and you have to be careful of your. I think we are a lot more cautious of our sources now.
Yes.
Those have been around for a while because I mean, early on, yeah, I mean, you just you're like drinking out of a fire hose. Whatever you could get a hold of is what you did, and you had the whole Ravens Wolf and it had all that kind of stuff coming out, but that was it. That was the consistency of, and you were hiding in the Barnes and Noble aisle, kind of looking to see, what, because, down here in the South, I mean, probably just the last 5 to 10 years has it been okay to kind of be out, because we're
Correct.
still kind of we're not built that way down here. It's just because it's just how it is.
Right.
But I think going through, because I came in right at the end of the witch wars, that we're having in the '90s, and there was that where everybody was shut down, you know, we kind of retreated, until where, in the early 2000s, people started going, okay, well, what else is going on? Paganet news, you probably remember all that, and Dreama and all that kind of, is kind of where I really kind of came out as being work in the community more than just
Hmm.
kind of doing my own thing. And it's really shocking to look at some of those giants that were then, and then you see them now, and you go, wow, I knew you before you were cool.
It's true. It's true. The witch wars and the satanic panic really had a huge effect on the pagan community, because here we were finally coming out and really trying to connect with each other. And then we have this whole of society that's trying to just shut us down, and we have to retreat. And witchcraft has always had that secret, silent piece of it, of like, we just do things in the shadows. We don't worry about being out in the daylight. And like, I was one of those people that wore my pentacle loud and proud on the New York City subway, and I was daring people to try to say something to me, because I can tell you what witchcraft is, and it's not anything that you think it is. It's a lot more work, let me tell you that.
Yeah. Well, on
um,
yourself, which is
yeah,
harder.
yeah, it really is. My sister is a clinical psychologist, especially for children. And
Ooh.
she said that the shadow work that I have done in witchcraft, like, definitely is a part of therapy. And the fact that I did it voluntarily and with the work of my guides and with me, without having that therapist part of it. We all have that therapist part of it, but the piece that we're willing to work on ourselves is a huge piece of therapy. And it's healing, and it's reverent, and it's a really important part of what it is we do, so that we can connect to people on a more genuine level.
And that's interesting because, I spent the first 25 years not being devoted to any particular deity, and
Hmm.
I was wearing it like a badge of honor almost, hey, I
Yeah.
don't, I play with everybody, I'm an equal opportunity guy, right?
Right.
Um, but when the Morgan came in, she kind of how she does, um, is when I did a lot of that deep work that needed to be done that I've been carrying around. I was an evening drinker, right? I don't have a problem, because it is what it is, because I couldn't handle my drinks, right? From being in the desert and some of those things that you have to go through. I just, hadn't come to grips with a lot of that. And to me, I think it's that intimacy that you create being devoted to a deity, whoever that may be, is where the growth edge is.
Yeah.
Because I think I've heard so many people that have other deities that they're devoted to kind of speak similarity, with their having to go through a change and get their life cleaned up or readjusted so they can be of value to the deity, right? Or the god or goddess that they're following. I find that very um comforting, and B, scary as hell. Because, because I teach a class on the Morgan, and I tell folks, that the the two most intimate relationships that you'll ever have will be with your spouse, significant other, and your deity.
Hmm.
And those intimate is where the magic happens.
Yeah.
For me, it's like that's when I can really, I can really, the hammer meets the anvil, so to speak. That's
Yeah.
that's when you get shit done, because you have that source, lack of a
Yes.
better word. So,
And I would say that your deep intimacy is also with yourself.
Yes.
When so I've gone through, I'm saying it like this, and my deities would be laughing at me. I've gone through a lot of deities. I've had a lot of different relationships with different deities. I started with Isis and Nephthys and Anubis and Thoth, so very much in the Egyptian pantheon. I wove my way into the Irish a little bit, but at the time I would call it more Celtic, trying to find the connections. And then I went into a little bit more Greek and Roman. I had really pushed away from the Greek and Roman because I was like, no, that's done. That's old hat. And then Hera came and stole me. So that is just how it is. And then I took the deep dive of untying the Celtic knot to understand the different cultures
Hmm.
and where those things come from. And that's when I met Anne Morrigan. And I work with Oma, I work with Nuada, I work with Unbive, and Unbive in particular, whew,
Yeah.
she kicked my ass, first of all, but she held me accountable to the honesty of myself. And it wasn't just the honesty of what I would speak out loud to other people, although that was a factor. It was a huge piece of being honest of who I am.
Hmm.
And she just hammered me in that same way of the anvil um, for the 6 month intensive. That is what my work was, and it was nasty and it was hard because we don't want to be honest with ourselves. But that is our intimacy. That is our
Yep.
that is our relationship.
And some of those have been self-defense, right? You're creating those with however, whatever situation you went through in the past, and that's how you deal with it. It's self-preservation. But
Exactly.
but being devoted and working with them in an intimate way is how you're able to kind of peel back those layers of the onion to where you don't need to do that anymore. We need to
Yeah,
get rid of this because it's holding you back from going forward. And
exactly.
I think that's yeah. It's so. What's the favorite thing about what you do?
I love making the connections with people and doing ritual. It is just one of the things that I really really enjoy. If I'm able to give you some sort of wisdom, if I'm able to give you um, an insight into connection with spiritual, with deity, then that is my jam. It is just one of my favorite things to do, which is why I love doing the full moon rituals and I love doing the Sabbats. These healing deity rituals have been amazing at the Temple of Witchcraft, where I've been able to take those deep dives into Caradwyn, deep dives into Rhiannon. Rhiannon's ritual was really special to me because it was all about grief. And I lost my father in November of 2020. It was very much a surprise. He was not sick. He just left. Um, and so I needed that processing to happen. And Rhiannon was really there to hold me because she did a lot of grieving. In her stories in the Welsh, she did a lot of grieving, grieving of leaving her family behind to go and marry Pryderi, grieving for her child that got stolen, and then grieving for her husband that passed, and then grieving for, losing her whole entire livelihood, and wandering. The Mabinogi is wonderful for that. But understanding that these deities and these stories can actually reflect and touch upon our own lives.
Hmm.
Not all of us are going to be war goddesses like the Morrigan, but I think that in some way we can relate to Maka and how she was betrayed
Hmm.
and she was forced into doing something she didn't want to do. And she got mad about it. And that's a really good thing. You should get mad about it, you
Righteous
know?
anger. Yeah.
Exactly. Um, but you can feel all of that through their stories and connect them back to you. So that is like one of my favorite things to do is to make those connections so people can see that.
So you've been doing this a long time, and you've taken it to another level. right? Because anytime you take a step up, you almost take a step back, right? Um,
Always.
so, how do you practice self-care?
I have my morning is mine. So, like, I have my cup of coffee. I try to wake up a little bit and I try to do some devotions. Lately, it's just been reading, and that is a devotion within itself. So,
Hmm.
I was reading the book Haggitude from Sharon Blackie, just so that I could get a feel for the menopause and the croning because I am of those ages. So just to see what she had to say about it. Right now, I'm reading the book Circe, which is a new retelling of that goddess, and it's just like kind of sitting in that flow. Whenever I go outside to take out the dog, I am looking at the trees. I'm looking for any kind of sign or symbol, any bird. Like, what am I hearing? What am I seeing? What's around me at this moment? And then at night, I light my candles, I clear my energy, I clear my spaces, and just like sit within, okay, I'm here, come to me in dreams, speak to me, let me help me process, help me heal. I will give myself self Reiki, but I will tell you I'm terrible at, sitting down and making that space. But when I do sit down and make that space, it's a joy.
Yeah.
And so I'm able to connect. So I do try to connect throughout the day and not just, oh, I got to do groceries. Ah, I got to wash this. I got to do that, like everyone.
So, and you probably do this within your community, but what would, if you could just tell new people to the path, I'm gonna say pagan as an umbrella to
Yeah.
cover everybody, right? And I don't no disrespect to heathens, but I could be here all day listing everybody's whatever. So I'm just going to use it as an umbrella. Someone new to the pagan path, what would you tell them as being the biggest nugget or thing that they need to do?
It's a lot of reading. It's a lot of research. You don't have to be devoted to a deity, especially if you're coming from a church background where you're just like, I don't want to deal with gods. It's totally fine. But do the reading on connecting to your land, connecting to your breath, connecting to your body, and having that understanding of self, because that's magic.
Hmm.
And then when you start reading about the practice, paganism in particular, what I love about it is that it runs in cycles. So you're celebrating the winter in the wintertime. You're celebrating the spring in the springtime. You're celebrating the summer in the summertime. You are hitting this wheel, we call it the wheel of the year, and we call it the wheel because it doesn't end. It just continues. And so if you connect to the sacredness of your own breath and body, if you connect to the sacredness of the land that you're standing on, and then you connect to the cycles right around you, you will feel that deepening and you will feel like that is divinity.
Yeah, and I think we go through the same cycles as the earth does, right?
Yeah.
Whether you want to, if you pay attention, because for me, after Samhain, to me, that's cave time.
Yeah.
It's just nothing going on until Yule, right? I'm just, I don't want to talk to nobody. I don't,
Yep.
it's, time out. That's my time, right? So yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, and it's every year, and it's almost you're doing it naturally.
Yeah.
For me, knowing what I know, seeing what I've seen, it just happens. You just kind of kind of go with the flow, so to speak. So what's the most, because I know you travel, so I've seen pictures from all the places that you go. What's the most interesting place that you've been to?
Um, the most interesting place that I have been to recently, and I would love to go back again, is New Orleans.
Mm,
It
hmm.
is quite the liminal space. Um, I haven't been to Ireland since the 80s. I wound up going there on a school trip. I have been to Europe and I find Europe fascinating and lovely to be in, but New Orleans has this magic to it that is just palpable when you
Yeah,
walk
it's
in.
lit up
It
when you get
is.
off the plane. You it's in Baton
It
Rouge, you
is.
get it.
And you I'm a city girl. So to me, Bourbon Street and the French Quarter and all of that, I'm like, yeah, okay, that's a city. It's just like what you would do in a city, what you would do in New York City. You shield yourself, you walk through and all of that. But the people and the space is so vibrant
Hmm.
and the spirits are awake and they want you to engage with them. And it feels like the magic that they do down there is a part of life in
Hmm.
the north, in particular in the north. Not to say north and south, but I feel like especially in New York City and Boston, because I'm in Boston now, we like to separate ourselves from that spiritual thing, and this is this thing, and this is this thing. And down there, it combines.
Yeah.
It is really a part of the flow of your blood and your breath in that moment. And that's what I try to convey up here is that no, we actually do need to bring all of that together.
Yeah,
Um,
I know it was big, once again back in the 90s, early 2000s, you had a mundane life and you had a magical life.
yeah,
And they were separate until you put the regalia on. You know, and yeah, it's not.
it's not.
You can't be two people. You're only one person. You know?
Exactly, exactly. And I would hope that just like because I was a devout Catholic for many, many years, I would hope that your teachings and what you would be researching would kind of come into your life so that you understand to take care of the poor, to take care of other people, to have that compassion and that empathy to be able to connect with them. And that's the same thing with the paganism. If you connect to the cycles of the earth and you connect to yourself and your breath, you can be more compassionate and more empathetic to people who are out there that are trying to make those connections themselves and giving them a guiding way.
So what's the best piece of advice you ever got?
Best piece of advice I ever got. I would really have to say be true to your heart
Hmm.
because we like to hide our soft, squishy bit. And that being true to self and true to heart of what it is that you love is really important for that connection for everything.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I know we spent a lot of time talking about community while we've been here, but to me, it's kind of important to me.
Yep.
We kind of need it. You can worship solitary, but you really need to rubber hits the road in the community, I think.
Yes.
Um, so what's the one thing you think that each of us can do to make community better?
We like to be in our own little caves and our own little hollows, and we don't want to really reach out. And some of us are afraid to reach out for various reasons, and that is completely understandable. I would say reach out to the people that you know that are safe and be willing to practice with them. Be willing to, instead of doing a solitary ritual, if you know that this person also practices, to be like, hey, do you want to come over and we'll do something together to celebrate the holiday, even if it's just a meal?
Yeah,
It is a part of just coming together. And I'm guilty of it. I run out of spoons. I don't want to have to talk to somebody. I don't want to have to deal with it. But I think those 8 times a year that the wheel turns, having the connection with somebody else in a pagan setting is really important for our own growth so that you can feel that connection to everyone.
and I think not overlooking the hospitality end of it.
Hmm.
There's a lot to be learned over breaking bread. Pardon the phrase, but I mean it's amazing. Because there's something about the intimacy of just sitting down and eating with someone else that really kind of, gives you a chance to connect on a level that you wouldn't normally get going out to eat,
Yes.
necessarily. So, all right. So any final thoughts before I let you go?
Um, I I find connection in the most unlikely of places. When I am out like shopping, I will hear a song that will connect to something else. And you might turn around and say, oh, it's just a coincidence, not a big deal. Those coincidences add up to messages, and write those things down. Like a lot of people don't want to necessarily journal, and I get that, but I have a thing on my phone that is a little notepad, and I will write stuff down on that notepad. And as I'm writing, I will realize, oh, that was a message from Anne Morrigan that I need to do this. So be mindful as you walk through the world, because you might be seeing some things that are actual messages to you. Sometimes a feather is a feather, but sometimes a feather that falls right in the front of you is a message.
Right. I think that's, the recurring theme of when I teach, people go, oh yeah, I didn't realize, that was her way back then.
Yeah.
She's been, now that I understand her a little bit, or them or whatever, yeah, you can go back. So if you were doing that early on, think about where you would be now, right? So excellent.
Yeah.
John, thank you very much for coming in and spending some time and sharing your wisdom with us. All your information, folks, her information will be down in the show notes, so make sure you go visit her, hook up with her. Obviously, you can tell she's good peeps. Um, and those of you that are part of Patreon, we're going to do our normal Metal Magic segment, and we'll see you over on Patreon, right? So, thanks for coming. We'll see you.
Thank you.